In this video, I'm going to show you how to change a tire and or an inner tube on your bike. And the very first step here is going to be unscrewing the Presta valve, assuming you're using a road bike tire. It's most likely going to be a Presta. The other kind is a Schrader. If it's Schrader, there's going to be a little pin that you just press in. On Presta, you just unscrew it like this and press the top of it. This will release all the air inside. Then you will need 2 tire irons that are made of plastic, but it's pretty strong plastic, that look like this. You will also want to make sure before you jump too deep into this that you have a replacement inner tube as well as a replacement tire potentially. There's 2 types of tires. You have tires that have wire beads on the inside, like this one. As you can see, it kind of is able to stand on its own like this. If this had a Kevlar thing, a non-wire bead tire, it would be able to collapse, and those are a little bit more expensive and light, but I don't really care about lightness because I don't really care that much about going fast on my bike, and the wire bead tires work fine for me. So after you've released the air, you've got your required parts that you're going to be changing. The first thing you'll be doing is just finding a nice place to insert your tire iron. And let's see if I can do this. Basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be holding the tire back like this, and then you will get this tire iron underneath the first lip of this tire. So if we were to look at the other tire we have right here, we've got 2 beads, bead on the right side and then a bead on the left side. The goal is to get this tire iron underneath the bead on just this right side, and then once you do that, you hook this thing against one of your spokes on your wheel, and this is to hold it in place. Then you take your other tire iron and you begin to move around to release the full rest of the side of the bead on the tire, and I'll cut to that scene where I'm doing that part. Okay, so after you get your first tire iron hooked around the bead, you slip another tire iron around it, and then you will work your way around, slowly trying to push away the bead. And sometimes these things can be a little bit tough to do, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. You're basically working your way outwards to relieve this bead, just like that. And you want to make sure also that you're not pinching your inner tube. It's very important. So you just keep working around like this until you make it all the way around, and now you've successfully removed one side of the bead from your tire. The next thing you're going to be doing here is taking out the inner tube that is in the tire. So if you lift up like this, you should see it, and you just pull it out like this. It's very important to make sure that you don't pull it out right here, because then you might rip off the inner tube from the actual valve part here, and that's very bad. Then you have to buy a new inner tube. You just do this, and then once you've got it like that, you hold the tire over like this, and you can just, sorry, you can't really see it. Basically, you get the rest of this bead off, and then you can take out your tire like so, or the inner tube, sorry. And then once the inner tube's off, getting the rest of the tire off is pretty easy. You just slip off the bead just like that, and now you have your rim without the tire on it. So what we're going to do next is get our new tire and put the first bead, just one side of the bead, around this tire, and I'll cut to that scene once I have that done. Okay guys, and so once we get the bead around the rim, the first bead on one side, get your new inner tube ready, or the same inner tube. I do strongly recommend that you fill up your inner tube that you're going to be putting in with some air to test for leaks before you put in the inner tube into your wheel. And this is because you don't want to have to completely redo this whole process if you end up putting in a defective item or something that already has a hole in it. Also, if you're replacing the same tire, if you just had a flat on the side of the road, I strongly encourage you to run your fingers through the tire just to see if there's anything sharp in here, and that will potentially save you from running out of spare tires or spare inner tubes when you're on the road. Because if you got a flat tire, you really want to know what the cause of it is. If it is glass that might be inside your tire, you definitely want to get rid of that so you don't just give yourself another flat tire right away. That's one of the mistakes that a lot of people, myself included, have made. So check the tire, check your inner tube, make sure everything's clean before moving on and putting back in your inner tube. And so putting this back in is pretty much the reverse of taking it off. I will try to show clips of me doing that. Okay, so I just finished putting back in the inner tube into the wheel, and then I slipped the inner tube into the little hook within the rim, and then I also went around the tire like this to make sure that we've got the inner tube fully on the rim, because the last thing you want to have happen here is the inner tube getting pinched between the outer bead of your tire and then the bead on the rim. And so once you've made it this far and you're sure that your inner tube is fully seated on the metal rim inside of your wheel, now what you want to do is go on this thing, make sure that you push up a little bit on this thing to give yourself some slack. And then basically what we're going to be doing, and I'll need to do this off camera because it requires two hands, you hold the bead in place here, and then you place the second bead over the rim. And once you've done that and inflated your tire, you are essentially done. And so just to give a final note on replacing these tires, so this is the part where it can sometimes have an enormous amount of tension where you've just got like maybe a few inches of remaining bead that you need to get on. Sometimes I'm lucky that this is a really easy to work with tire. On other tires, it can be very hard to do, and your finger will be raw is probably the best word to describe it afterwards. But in this case, if you find yourself in this position, what you do is you use your tire irons and you place them underneath this little hook, and then you kind of use them to pry up on this bead to push it in place. In this case, I can just use my finger to get this bead fully in place. And once you've done that, I also really like giving the tire kind of a massage like this. Basically, you're pulling up on both sides of it to really let the inner tube sit inside the metal rim of this thing. And then you're also making sure that your tire is fully on the bead as well of the metal rim. And once you've done that, now you can take your pump and you unscrew this valve here. I had a little bit of air in there, and you will put on your pump and inflate this to the appropriate PSI. Usually they'll tell you what the maximum PSI is on the sidewalls of these tires. And so that wraps things up for this video. I hope you guys find this useful, and thanks for watching.